Hello students, this is Amardeep Singh, your computer teacher, and today we are going to continue with the same chapter looping in Python. And the topics that we'll discuss today are the else statement used with for loop and nested loops. So first we'll discuss about else statement in for loop. Else block is executed only if for loop terminates normally. So that means this block will execute only after the last iteration of the loop. If you want to run a loop starting from 1 to 10, then after the last 10th iteration, the else block will execute only once. So let's demonstrate how to use else statement in for loop. For example, if we will run a loop range starting from 1 to 10, that means we have to specify 1 to 11, then print the value of I. In this case, the loop will execute 10 times starting from 1 to 10. So if you will run this, this one will be the output. And then next, if you will define else portion here, else print is else block of for loop, save it and run this code. And now you can check after the last iteration, after printing the last value, that is 10, then the else block will execute only once. So the else block is used to perform some finalization task after the completion of loop, but it will execute only if the loop will terminate normally. If you will use any statement to stop the loop before its completion abnormally, then the else portion will not execute. For example, if you will use a break statement to terminate the loop before its completion, then the else block will not execute. Next we'll discuss about nested loop. Nesting of for means that one for loop is enclosed within another for loop. For each iteration of outer for, inner loop gets completely executed. So here we are having syntax of using nested loop. This one is known as the outer loop. If you will define a loop inside the body of this loop, then this loop will be known as inner or nested loop. So if you will define a loop inside the body of another loop, then that loop will be uh, known as a nested loop. Next, this flowchart represents to the execution flow of nested loop. So first we are having, after initialization of parent loop, outer loop variable, then system will check the condition. Even if for loop of Python is not having any condition, but the range in itself a condition. The condition is true if the value is within the given range of inside the range function. So that means if the condition is true, then the control moves to the nested loop. Then again it will check the range of inner loop, the nested loop. If the condition is true, then the statements inside the nested loop will get executed, and after the completion of these statements, the control moves to increment or decrement statement, that in case of for loop, system automatically increase or decrease the value depending on the step statement inside range function. After performing increment or decrement, control moves to again for checking the condition. If the condition is again true, then these statements inside the inner loop will get executed, and again the same procedure. This iteration will continue its execution until the condition is till the condition is true, and when the condition turns to false, then the control will exit from the nested loop. Then when the control exit from the nested loop, then the execution control will move to the increment and decrement portion of the parent loop, that is the outer loop. And after the increment or decrement in the value of a loop variable, again the condition of the range of the outer loop will checked by the system. Again, if the condition is true, then the control will again move to the inner loop, and again the inner loop variable start from its initial value, and if the condition is true, then again the same procedure will execute, the same steps will repeat again and again. If the condition is true, then statements will execute, increment and decrement, then again condition will check, and the same procedure will execute repetitively. And if when the condition will be false, then the control will exit from that loop, and the control moves to again this portion of the parent loop. So nested loop always execute repetitively when it gets control from the outer loop. When the condition of the outer loop will be false, will turns to false, then the control will move from uh, to this control will exit from the parent loop, and the program will complete its execution, and nested loop will not execute at that time, because nested loop will execute only if the condition of parent loop is true. If the condition of parent loop is false, then the control will exit from all the loops. To understand the way of execution of a nested loop, let's have a look into this code. We are having an outer loop with I variable, and the range is 1 to 4. That means when we will execute this loop, the value of I will be starting from 1 to 3, because the 4 will not be included in the output. Then next, in the nested loop, we are having a variable j, and the range of this variable is 1 to 3. That means it will generate values 1 and 2. So inside the nested loop, we are printing the value of I and j to understand the working of these two loops. So first of all, when we will execute this code, the first loop, outer loop, will start its execution, and the value of first value of I will be 1, that is the initial value of outer loop variable I, and then the control moves to the nested loop. The initial value of j is according to this range values, so the initial value of j will be 1. So that means presently the value of I and j is 1. So when this line will execute, it will generate the value, it will print the value I equal to 1 and j equal to 1. Then after that, the control moves to the increment part of this nested loop, and then the value of j will be 2. That means when you will print this line, the value of I is still 1, because the increment portion, the increment statement of this outer loop still not executed. So that means the presently the value of I is the same value, that is 1, and the value of j has been updated, that is 2. So that means the value of I will be 1 and value of j will be 2. Then next, when after the increment of j, the value of j will be 3 and the condition is false according to this given range. Then after, the control will exit from this nested loop, and the control will move to the increment portion of this parent loop, that is outer loop. Then I will be incremented by 1, then the present value of I will be 2. Then again the nested loop will receive the control, and it will again start from its initial value, that is 1. Then again 1 will be assigned to j. So every time the nested loop will get control from the parent loop, the variable of nested loop uh, will be assigned the initial value specified in the range. That means now the again the value of j is 1, and then when you will print this line, the value of I is presently 2 and the value of j is presently 1. So after the loop will exit, after exiting from the nested loop, again when you will execute this line, the value of I will be 2 and the value of j will be 1. Then next j will be incremented by 1, then the value of j will be 2, and again when you will print this statement, the value of I is still 2 and the value of j is presently 2. Then after incrementing the value of j, the present value of j is 3. That means the condition is false. Then the control will exit from the nested loop. Then after exiting from the nested loop, the control will move to the parent loop, the outer loop, and the value of I will be incremented by 1. That means the value will be 3. And again the nested loop will get the control. It will receive the control from parent loop, and j will be assigned again its initial value specified in range. That means the value of j will be again 1, and during the printing of this line, the present value of I will be 3 and the value of j is present value of j is 1 again. So the value of I will be 3 and value of j will be 1, and again the value of j will be incremented by 1, so the value of j is 2, and during the printing of this line, the value of I is 3 and the value of j is 2. After incrementing the value of j, the condition will be false and the control will exit from the nested loop. So then after that, the control will move to the incrementing part of this parent loop, this outer loop, and after incrementing the value of I by 1, the value of I is presently 4 and the condition is false now. So when the condition of this parent loop, this outer loop is false, then the control will exit from all the loops. So that means it will exit the control from the outer loop. So that is the way how the nested loop will get executed with the help of parent loop. When the condition of parent loop is true, then the nested loop will get the control from the parent loop and it will complete its iterations, its repetitions again and again. According to the number of times it will get the control from the parent loop. So that is all about how we can execute, what is the way of execution of a nested loop. So let's try to run the same code uh, using Python interpreter for I in range 1 comma 4. That means it will execute starting from 1 to 3. Then next again we are having a nested loop. That means j, you have to use a different variable name, j in range 1 comma 3. That means it will execute starting from 1 to 2. Then print percentage d, uh, I will print I equal to percentage d, after some space j equal to percentage d. Then next we have to print, first we have to print value of I, then after that we will print the value of j. Save this code. Then after saving the code, I'll run this code. Then now you can check the value of I is first time 1, then j is 1, then I is 1, j is 2, I is 2, then j. If you want to print the intermediate messages also, then uh, where the nested loop will stop its execution, then I'll print a line out of the nested loop inside the outer loop also. Then print exit from nested loop, because this statement this statement is a part of parent loop, and this portion of parent loop will get the control when the control exits from the nested loop. So save it and run it, and now you can check this one is the output. So nested loop always get executed two times. First value of I is 1, then j is 2, I is 1, then j is 2. Exit from the parent loop, then value of I equal to 2, then j is again the value of j is initialized to its a starting value, that is 1, then value of I is equal to 2, then j equal to 2 again, then the control exits from the nested loop. Then after that value of I is equal to 3, then j equal to 1, again reinitialized. So that is the way a nested loop always get executed. So it's all about the execution of a nested loop. So finally, that is all about how we can use else statement with for loop, and how we can use a nested loop. If you people are having any kind of doubt related to else statement